Hello, everybody, and welcome to Inclusion Matters podcast with Inclusion Pro Wrestling. I am the crippled Messiah, and the Heartbreaker is usually on here with me, but he's helping out with the Special Olympics tonight. I'm probably eating too much popcorn, but we'll see. Um, and tonight we're joined by C.R. O'Malley. Thank you very much for being on tonight, and why don't you go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself?
Oh, well, thank you for having me. Like you said, my name is C.R. O'Malley. I am a manager out of Northeast Pennsylvania. I have been managing for about 4 years now. Um, and I'm just trying to, get out and get out of my little Pennsylvania bubble now and kind of, get my name out there. Hopefully get to manage more people, get to more places, and maybe one day get to the big leagues.
Well, I can see it. So,
Thank you.
So, what made you want to become a manager? I think everybody wants to become a wrestler, but I think managing is kind of like a lost art.
So what some people don't know is which is one of the reasons I actually was excited about coming on here. I actually have a disability. I've called spina bifida. So I've been a wrestling fan since I was like probably 8, 9 years old, since around 97, 98, around there. That's when I really started kind of getting into watching wrestling regularly. And always wanted to be a wrestler, unfortunately, um, that didn't play out in the cards for me. I probably could have. I've been in a couple matches here and there. I've been in a couple rumbles. I've been in a tag team match before. But as for it being like taken seriously as a wrestler, that really wasn't in the cards. And I actually was working with a friend of mine who was about to debut, and I overheard him talking about it, and I got talking to him. We became friends, and I came to his debut, and I came to a couple of his matches after that, and a couple of his shows, and finally we were talking, and he said, you love professional wrestling, why don't you try it? Why don't you come to the school that he trained at, and why don't you give it a shot? He's like, maybe you can't be a wrestler, but you can be a manager, a referee, something like that. And I always thought about being a manager, but I didn't know if all wrestling schools had, trained managers and things like that. I've always loved managers. I've always kind of had a special place in my heart for managers. I just didn't really realize it until, my friend said something to me, and I was like, you know what, you're right. Um, so I went to the school, which is formerly was Backbreakers Training Center um in up in Northeast PA, and I signed up, and I went through training, and the rest is history. So kind of kind of got into it that way.
Very inspiring, and especially for me personally, because I'm in a wheelchair, so you know what I mean.
Right,
Um,
right.
what was there a lot of like surprise? I don't want to say like people telling you couldn't do it, but like surprise when like the trainers found out you had spinal bifida and
Um, I mean, no one really said anything to my face. I'm sure there were a lot of people who didn't think I would make it, who didn't think that I would make it, maybe even past like the first day of training. Um, but I think and I don't like to say that I wanted it more than other people, because I'm not going to say that my love for professional wrestling is any bigger than the next guy's. But I think that the fact that I have a disability, and there are probably a lot of people who didn't think I was going to make it, um, I think that pushed me. And they could have said to my face, like, "Hey, you're never going to make it. You're not going to, you're not gonna make it in this business, it wouldn't have stopped me. Once I kind of kicked in that door and I signed up, it was like, you know what? Hey, if I could do that, I know what I can do. I always tell myself that. I know what I can do. Even, when my doctors tell me, you shouldn't do this, I say, you know what? Hey, I know my body better than you do. I know what I can do, what I can't do. So, uh, to kind of, shorten it up, I'm sure there was a lot of people who did think that I wouldn't make it, or, were doubters, but I feel like I've proved them wrong 4 years later. So, I I I I welcome people to doubt me because that pushes me more.
It is a very motivating tactic when somebody doubts you. And I think when you have a disability, not to get on a soapbox about disabilities too much, but I think when you have one, you kind of like set yourself up thinking that's going to happen because it
Right.
happens so much in everyday life. So, you know, um, for me, when I went to a training school in Kelso, which was not even close to being probably like the one that you went to, they looked at me, but they thought, well, we're just doing the ring stuff, and because I'm in a wheelchair, that didn't really mix too well, right? Because
Right.
you can't really get it to a ring if it's up there. But like you, that didn't stop me
Right.
because it took me 20 years, but I was able to buy a ring that
Nice.
Roddy Piper's actually wrestled in
Oh,
since
nice.
he was in the Northwest.
Yeah, that's
And
awesome.
and actually on November 25th, we'll be running our first show as Inclusion Pro Wrestling.
Nice. That's
And I
awesome.
usually wait to bring this up, but I think you'll appreciate this probably a little bit more than a lot of our guests. The
Yeah.
reason that um, we're called Inclusion is because 3 of the 5 members on our board of directors have a disability. Um,
Nice.
and we're not going to let turn anybody away, right? If you have a disability, whatever your background is, if you want to have a dream of being a pro wrestler, right? If you have a dream of being a manager, a commentator,
Right.
a referee, right? Come try it out. If 5 minutes later you figure out it's not for you, great. But at least you had that 5 minutes where you
Right.
got to live your dream, right? You got to answer that question
Right.
of
That,
can I do this, right?
yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah. Yeah, I think a lot of people need that, because one of my, selfishly I got into wrestling for me, but I also want to like inspire other people and kids with disabilities. Like, hey, if there's something you want to do, and it doesn't even have to be professional wrestling, if you're a football fan and you want to work for an NFL, team, or if you're a baseball fan, you want to work for the MLB. You may not be able to be a player, but there's always ways to get in. There's always, you can go for sports medicine. You should, you know, there's always some way I feel like to get into, the field of whatever your dream is. And that's kind of what I kind of want to inspire people to do. So that's
Absolutely.
cool.
And I would love for maybe in the future, you know, um, to have you come down and check out one of our shows or maybe manage at one of our shows.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. If I can get out there, I would love to. That,
You know,
that's
I think, that's kind of like, would be like a perfect thing, with your background. And
yeah. Oh yeah, that'd be awesome. Definitely. Definitely.
so, and I want to, before we get into the questions, because I swear we're actually going to get into questions, but I want to say thank you to the Rain Church in um, Kelso, Washington, who just today became the permanent home of Inclusion Pro Wrestling.
Nice. Nice.
So thank you so much for helping me and, like you said, other people help their dreams come true.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So now to the questions.
Right.
Who were some of your wrestling heroes growing up?
Oh man. So I would have to say one of the first that really kind of, I guess, caught my imagination, and really kind of what was a guy that I really looked up to was Triple H. I loved Triple H when I was a kid. Also, Sean Waltman, X Pac. I was a big DX guy, so a lot of those guys I really look up to. Bret Hart, um, as you can tell, or over here. Uh, I use StreamYard all the time, and I keep forgetting. I always forget. Um, Macho Man. There's so many. I could probably come up with a list of like 20, but I'll definitely say Triple H, X Pac, where it was probably two of my favorites growing up, especially initially when I first started watching wrestling.
So if somebody came up to you and asked you what your managerial style or character is, how would you describe it?
Uh, I guess I would describe it as scrappy. I guess I'm not. Uh, I like to work heel, but I don't see myself as the quote unquote chicken shit heel. And I think that's just kind of more of me coming out, is like, I'm not gonna back down. I mean, I've been power bombed before. I've had a guitar smashed over my head before. Like, come on. So I guess kind of I would say scrappy. Not afraid to, if need be, get in harm's way, kind of get my hands dirty. So yeah.
Right. So, top five uh factions of all time.
Ooh, top five factions of all time. Um, let's see. You got to go with the Four Horsemen. I think they have to be in everyone's top five. Depending on where, it doesn't have to be number one, doesn't have to be number five, but for me, I'd put them at five. They're definitely make the list. Um, let's see. Hmm. Gonna kind of cheat, and I'm gonna put NWO, the black and white NWO, at number four for me. Um, I was a little bit more of a Wolfpack fan when I was a kid, so put them there. Hmm. Then three would be the Ministry of Darkness. I think they're very kind of underrated as a faction. I think people kind of overlook them a lot, and uh, I feel like that phase of Undertaker's career is really polarizing. You either loved it or you hated it, and I absolutely loved it. Number two would be the Wolfpack, NWO Wolfpack, and then number one would be DX.
Very nice. And I agree with you on the Ministry of Darkness. I think people gloss over that one, and they really shouldn't.
Right. It was so good. There was, such good storytelling, and you actually were kind of, you were afraid of like what Undertaker was going to do. Like, yeah. uh,
So, um, who's the biggest name either that you managed against or maybe one of your clients has wrestled against?
uh let's see. Um I don't know if necessarily the biggest, but one of my favorites was, I managed, one of the tag teams that I managed at the time was called Main Event. They've worked AEW Dark a couple of times, but they were in a triple threat tag team match against another team locally and the Ascension. So that was pretty cool. Really cool guys, the Ascension. And I feel like I think I liked it the most, or I kind of hold it in high regard, is because I feel like I earned their respect. So, and that's really what I wanted to do is, anytime I get to work somebody new, I just want to earn their respect. I want to, show that I belong, and hopefully, they agree. Um, so that was a fun match for me, to work with them. They were really, really nice guys. I like them.
And I think they were underrated too. Like,
They were. I loved them in NXT. I think, me personally, I think when they brought them up to the main roster, I don't think the main roster really understood the gimmick from NXT, and they kind of made them like Road Warriors 2.0, which I hate when they do that. I think they should have just kept them what they were in NXT. It worked. They were undefeated for however long it was. And they're a really good team. They're really good workers. I like them a lot.
and you're right about the Road Warriors thing. They're kind of doing that now with the Viking Raiders, which I think is a mistake.
Yeah, they're another team that I've always loved, and I just hate that they always want to make, they always want to repackage somebody as somebody else, and it's like, no, let them be what they are.
I mean, obviously they had success with it somewhere else before, so why change it?
Right, exactly. And that I never understand that. It's like you saw these guys in Ring of Honor or whatever, wherever they saw them, and you like them there enough to sign them. So it's like, why change? If it's broke, if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Right, like you could change their name, but
Right.
tweak it a little bit, but not their style or how they go about their matches. That's
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah, it doesn't make sense to me.
so top five uh, male wrestlers of all time.
Oh, top five. Um, hmm. Let's see. And I apologize. I don't know if these are going to necessarily be in order. Uh, but I definitely have to go with Macho Man. An incredibly good technical wrestler and one of the greatest characters of all time. Um, uh, Bret Hart, as I said earlier. Um, I'm not a huge fan of Shawn Michaels, but I definitely have to put Shawn Michaels in the top five. I think he definitely deserves that spot. Um, hmm. I personally, and this is kind of one that a lot of people might not agree with, or really kind of might look over, but I would put Ken Shamrock in there. I was always a huge Ken Shamrock fan. I think he was a phenomenal worker. I think he was very underrated. I think, obviously he was more looked at as an MMA guy, but I think he was a really, really good wrestler. Um, and then I'm gonna put him in there. It's a fresh wound, but Bray Wyatt. Um, I've been talking to so many friends the past 2 days. You know, just about how good he was, and I don't think people really realized how good he was, not only in ring, not only as a character, but as a human. I think he was. We lost a really really good dude. He's yeah.
I agree, and I said this to my executive producer and a lot of my friends. In my opinion, and this might get people's eyebrows to raise, but the most creative person in wrestling ever. If you look at like the number of ways he could read a crowd Much like a counselor has to read people's expressions.
Right.
Bray was a master at reading a crowd and knowing kind of like what Chris Jericho does,
Right.
where
Right.
he could read a crowd and be like, okay, this is what I need to do, even like in the middle of a match.
Oh yeah. And that is so hard to do. People don't realize how hard it is to, pay attention to the match that you're in, but also pay attention to the crowd and kind of, you know, figure out what they want you to do, what they don't want you to do. It's hard. And I mean, obviously he was a third generation wrestler, so I'd be surprised if he didn't know how to do that. But he was so good at it. He was amazing.
Yes. Um. So, uh, if you had a dream guy to manage from any generation, no questions asked, who would it be and
Hmm.
why?
So, I have a couple kind of bucket list guys that I've always wanted to manage. Uh, Kind of half as a joke, Hornswoggle, because um, my original gimmick and look was like kind of a steampunk with like a top hat, and everyone kind of called me a leprechaun. So it kind of was a running joke, and I would love to manage him. Uh, but one, actually, technically two, um, two people that I would love to manage one day, um, would be they were called the Handicap Heroes. It was Gregory Iron and Zach Gowen.
Oh
I
my God, that's awesome. Sorry, I didn't
Yeah,
mean.
yeah. Those that's one team that and I have tried to put it in, different promoters' ears here and there, like, hey, you know, what if we got these guys in? What if I managed them? Hey, Um hopefully, one day that'll happen. I don't know how much I don't know how much Zach is wrestling anymore, but hey, if the stars align and it happens, that'd be awesome. Um, but I mean, like other than that, like bigger names, if one day somehow again the stars align, I would love to manage the Hardy Boys just one time, one match. I don't care if it's on AEW. I don't care if it's WWE. I don't care if it's a hole in the wall wrestling promotion that no one will ever see. Just the fact that they were two of my heroes growing up. That would be a dream of mine. So I would have to say either the Handicap Heroes or the Hardy Boys.
Well, and I can't make any promises because new promotions they got to get
Right.
going first before you can bring people in.
Right.
But when you said that, my first thought was maybe down the line,
Yeah.
if we could do it, what a better place to do that dream pairing than at Inclusion Pro Wrestling.
Exactly. That'd be perfect. I would definitely be down for that. Yeah.
Um, so this top five should be right up your alley. Um,
Okay.
top five managers of all time.
Ooh, okay. So, uh number 1 always for me will be Paul Bearer, Percy Pringle, whatever you want to call him. He was my favorite manager as a kid. I absolutely loved him. Um, I always tell people that Undertaker was going to be the phenom anyway, but I don't think he would have had quite the aura and mystique that he has without Paul Bearer as his manager. I think Paul added so much to that dynamic. He was fantastic. He's one of those guys that I wish I could have met and talked to and just learned anything from him. Just if I learned one thing from him, that would have been incredible. So Paul Bear is number one. Um, This is probably where a lot of people are gonna turn it off and say I don't know what I'm talking about. But Jim Cornette, I absolutely love Jim Cornette. I think people just you know look at little snippets and clips of him and don't really care to look into the actual person or the he was an amazing manager, one of the best of all time. And I think he really has a mind for the business. I think a lot of people say he's out of touch, he's old, but I think what he really wants is just wrestling to be good and wrestling to make sense and to have logic, which is what I want. um, so Jim Cornette is number two. Um, let's see. Number three, I'm gonna have to go with Bobby the Brain Heenan. You gotta love the Heenan family, and he was just such a great character. He could work with anybody. He can make you hate him. He can make you laugh. He can make you cry. He was, you know, just he was born to be a manager, I think. Um, then let's see. Hmm. Probably put Jimmy Hart in there. Um, he's more known, I feel like, for managing Hogan. But again, he was one of the best. When you think of professional wrestling managers, I think he's one of the first you think of. I think if you ask the average person on the street who isn't necessarily a wrestling fan, if you could name one wrestling manager, I'm pretty sure at least one of them, would think of Jimmy Hart. So, got to go with Jimmy Hart there. Um, and then one of my favorites, that I think is vastly underrated, um, is Father James Mitchell. He
Yep.
was Loved him with Abyss. Um, Earlier on in my career, I managed a guy whose gimmick was a serial killer kind of gimmick, and I kind of, as a darker heel, I kind of channeled a lot of James Mitchell in that. So, one of my favorites. I would definitely put him in the top five.
Very good list. And I actually like two of those, and I'll tell you what. Well, I like all of them, but two kind of stuck out, which are Jim Cornette, because even though people don't like what he says on his podcast, people are still listening, right?
Right. Right.
And people still like to complain about it. So he's doing his job as far as that goes, because he's still got people talking. And
Exactly.
I honestly think that there would be no TNA right now or Impact without Father James Mitchell. Because if you didn't have Father James Mitchell in the new church
Oh yeah.
in the early days of the NWA TNA, I
Mm-hmm.
don't think it would have been as big as it was
Oh yeah.
or it
Yeah.
became.
Exactly. Yeah. I think him and AJ Styles were two of the cornerstones of that company. They definitely would not be here, period, if it wasn't for those two. So I agree.
Absolutely. Um. So, what's the craziest crowd you've ever managed in front of?
Um, hmm. Been a couple fair shows that I've worked. I don't can't really pick out one in particular. But I love working fair shows because you get so many different kinds of people. You get your dedicated wrestling fans, and then you get the people who maybe are just walking by and see, oh, there's a wrestling show, let's check it out. And oftentimes those are the people that are the most loud and the most kind of into the show, because I mean some of them just think it's fake, dumb wrestling, and they're gonna, vocalize that, and it's like, hey, cool. If you think, you can say what you want. If you're buying a ticket, you can heckle us. You can, say we suck. You can say this is fake. Um, I would welcome you to come in and take a couple bumps. But hey, um, but I've always loved fair crowds. I think they're really uh, energetic and fun fans to work in front of. But for a specific show or company, I love working PPW, Pennsylvania Premier Wrestling. I have a show coming up on the 9th with them. Their crowd is always hot. They're always into everything we do. Just a really good fan base. I like working in front of them.
Very nice. Okay, this one might be a little bit hard, although some people find it kind of fun.
Okay.
So we're gonna have you put your Booker hat on.
Okay.
So if you could book a dream WrestleMania card, indies are open, anything is open from any generation. I want your 6 best matches for a WrestleMania card.
Oh man. Let's see. 6 best matches. Hmm. Gotta gotta think about that one. Um. So gonna do. I gotta do the Hardy Boys. Versus the Motor City Machine Guns. I think they've had one or two matches before, but at a WrestleMania type show, the biggest show of the year, I think, they could probably quite literally tear the house down, if you let them. But two of my favorite tag teams of all time, I would love to see them, go at it for in a big WrestleMania match. Um, let's see. Hmm. Let's see. So probably do. This would be more so for the build up and the promos to the build up, but I got to do LA Knight. I'm probably going to be a triple threat match. I'm going to be honest. It's going to be LA Knight. It's going to be The Miz, and it's going to be The Rock. I think
Damn.
just just the build up and the promos would be worth it. The match could end up being the shits. It wouldn't be, but just the build up would be fantastic. We got two. Let's see. Hmm. Let's see. Gotta get a women's match in there. I feel like we gotta include the ladies. So I'm gonna do Alexa Bliss. Hmm. Who do I want to put her against? There's a couple. Hmm. Probably gonna go with I don't know if she's had a match with Trish Stratus before. But obviously we've seen that Trish can still go. And Alexa can obviously go. So I think that'd be a pretty good match. Let's see. We got three more. Um Trying to think off the top of my head. So I'm gonna put one of my friends in there because you gotta put your friends in the show. So we're gonna do the hmm yeah, the Electric City Master of Ceremonies Squid Sterling versus who do we want to put? Who do we want to put Squid against? I could really mess with him with this one. Uh, hmm. gonna come back to that one because I gotta think about that one. So we got three more, right? I think no, three more. I think we got three more. Uh, hmm. This is a tough one. This is tough. Um, I don't know if he's wrestling anymore, but we're gonna put Petey Williams, another guy that I feel like is super underrated that I loved, and unfortunately the Indies have killed his finish, the Canadian Destroyer.
Yep.
Uh, but I love me some Petey Williams. Um, put him against hmm another friend of mine, local guy who is it's gonna be big one day. I guarantee it. Siren Rain, good dude. Definitely check him out. Um, and then let's see. So we're gonna come back to Squid Sterling. Squid Sterling. You know what? We're gonna put two local guys because I gotta rep my Northeast wrestling scene up here on the biggest show of the year. So we're gonna do Squid Sterling versus Ricky Price. Um, that one, I think fans would really like that one. That'd be a good kind of cruiserweight style match right there. And number six, hmm, number six, hmm. You know, this is probably gonna be the toughest one because now I really gotta think.
You can see
Um,
now why everybody thinks this is the hardest question.
right? Especially when you got to think of it off the top of your head. Like if I was given a couple of days, I could easily put out a card. Um, let's see. Hmm. So we're we're gonna say he's in his prime for this match, but we're gonna do Bret Hart because we gotta have the excellence of execution on the show. If I'm booking my dream show, I gotta have Bret Hart on there. Have
Yep.
to. Uh but who do we want to put Bret against? It's got to be a young guy. It's got to be generation versus generation. I think I'm gonna go. I think I'm gonna go AJ Styles. I think that would be. Now that I'm thinking about it, that would be a phenomenal match. Excuse the pun, but that that'd be the main event right there.
See, that's better than the one I was thinking of.
What's that?
I was thinking of Adam Cole, but AJ fits better.
Yeah, yeah, honestly, you could put either of them in there. I feel like,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, they're both two of the best of this generation. And put them against Bret Hart, best there is, best there was, and truthfully, the best there ever will be. Uh, that either of those matches would be phenomenal. I think I would buy a ticket.
Heck, I'd buy a ticket to that whole card.
Right? I think it's pretty good.
So speaking of Bret Hart, he had the best match I've ever seen in the Iron Man match with Shawn Michaels
Right.
at
Yeah.
WrestleMania 12. I had to think about that for a second. It's been a long day. Um, so my question is, do you think they'll ever do like a women's 1 hour? Because I know they did the half-hour one with Bayley and Sasha Banks at NXT. A 1 hour Iron Women's match on the main roster, and if so, who would you put in it?
Ah, I would love to. I would love to see that because I think there are a lot of really talented women not only in WWE but in professional wrestling in general that could easily, do a 60-minute Iron Man match or Iron Woman match. Um, as for who I would put in it, um, now are we talking specifically WWE or are we talking anybody?
No, you could do anybody and just put them together too.
Okay, okay, so gotta put. I think Sasha Banks has to be in there. I think she could. I think she could definitely easily, pull out a 60-minute Iron Man match. She's, I know a lot of people kind of either love or hate her at this point, but I don't think you can take away the talent that she has, because she definitely has the talent there. Uh and I would put her against probably Charlotte Flair. I think Charlotte has, she obviously has the star power. She's not personally one of my favorites. A lot of my friends kind of look at me weird when I say that. I'm not a huge Charlotte fan, but I see the talent that she has and I see, the star power that she has. And I think those two in an Iron Woman match, at a 60-minute Iron Woman match, it would put asses in seats, as Triple H once famously said. Uh,
Yes, it would.
yeah,
And I think part of the problem, at least what I have with Charlotte, is they try to push down your throat too much that she's Ric Flair's daughter. Right? Like you already know she's Ric Flair's daughter. We don't need to know that like every.
right, right. And the thing about, like, there's a bunch of second generation and third generation wrestlers that don't necessarily need to, I don't want to say ride their, parents' coattails, but again, and I'm, bringing up again, it's fresh and it still hurts, but Bray Wyatt, you know, um, I'm sure when he first broke in, a lot of, the casual fans didn't know he was IRS's son, you know, and you didn't need to because he got
Mm-hmm.
over. He had the talent, he had the charisma, he had everything. He didn't need, to be associated necessarily with his dad, or his uncle. Um the same with Charlotte. She's good. She doesn't, we don't need to be reminded every 30 seconds that she's Ric Flair's daughter. We don't need the woo every time she does a chop. We don't need, one
Yeah.
of, I'm going to say it, one of the dumbest finishers I've ever seen, the figure eight, because it doesn't actually add anything to the figure four. It's just, it's I don't know. I think if they just kind of pushed her as the talent that she is, I may have liked her more. Um, but it's just that kind of left a bad taste in my mouth. And I love Ric Flair. There's nothing against Ric Flair. It's just like, can we just like Charlotte for her? Can we,
Mm-hmm.
appreciate her for her talent?
Yeah, I always thought the figure eight would look like it would be easier to reverse than the figure four because the other person's
Ri-
already off the ground.
Right. Yeah. It
So I mean,
doesn't.
your hips are already off the ground. So if the whole point is to roll to your
Yeah.
stomach, you're kind of halfway there already.
Right. It doesn't make any sense to me. I don't know.
Um, so this is kind of an interesting one that we ask. Who, in your opinion, is the best wrestler turned actor?
Oh. Hmm. I'm gonna say uh I'm gonna say John Cena. In fact, I think I would almost say he's better. And at acting than he is. You know, I for the longest time I hated John Cena because I felt like he was pushed down everybody's throat. He was an act for the kids. Um, you know, now I respect what he's done. I respect the work that he's put in. I'm a fan now. But at the same time, I will also say that I don't think he's a great in-ring worker. He's a great character. He's a great promo. You know he can pop a crowd. He can hold that crowd in the palm of his hand. He knows how to do that. But in ring, I don't think I think he's average at best as a wrestler. I think from the movies that I've seen him in and from the acting that I've seen him do, and even I think he's been on like Saturday Night Live a couple of times, and just his comedic timing, and he's just good. He's a good actor. I would almost, if he decided to hang the boots up and permanently pursue acting, I would be all for it, and I would watch all of his movies because I think he is a really good actor.
Yeah, I think if he would have been in um like any other promotion, I think than WWE, I think you would have saw more of that creative side.
Right.
But I don't think WWE, mainly because of Vince McMahon, I'm gonna say it, and it's probably gonna get people to be like, "Oh my God, you hate Vince McMahon," but which I don't. I just think he's out of touch with what wrestling is nowadays. But um, I think he doesn't let people, unlike Tony Khan. Sometimes I don't think he lets them be as creative as they can because he gets too
Right.
stuck in the way of what um he thinks they should be.
Yeah. Yeah. I can agree with that. And I think sort of to that kind of effect, or to that, to that point, I think, to me, one of the biggest mistakes they ever made was going public, because now you have to, and I will give him credit, because of this, but now he has to worry about sponsors. He has to worry about all of these different things that you wouldn't necessarily have to worry about if you had stayed as a private company. um but I mean, it brings in so much more money, so I understand why they did it. But I think it's, it kind of, it put him in a corner, I feel like, where they're not able to do as much as maybe they would have if they weren't, didn't have to worry about all these sponsors and corporate, things like that. So
I completely agree. And the one last thing I was gonna say about that topic was you talked about John Cena being shoved down our throats. I felt like they're doing that with Roman Reigns. Now, Roman's done a great job with the title, but I feel like, it's like here, he's the champion, so you have to like, you know,
yeah, yeah, I can see that. I don't think it's necessarily to the extent of what John Cena was. Because I do think for a while he was really, really pushed down our throats. Um, but I initially thought that with Roman. Now I've warmed up to the whole tribal chief thing and the bloodline. Kind of like it. Um, I think this is a good opportunity to really kind of or has been a good opportunity to kind of, in a way, separate the Usos and kind of show each of their personalities and each of their kind of characters and wrestling styles. Because since they broke in, it's always been, Jimmy and Jay, the Usos. You didn't really kind of see one without the other. And unfortunately, I forgot which one got injured and was out for a while. I can never remember between the two.
I
Uh,
think it was Jimmy because Jay's the
Yeah.
one that became the right hand man
Yeah,
after.
yeah, yeah, main event and Jey Uso, yeah. So you kinda got to see a little bit more of his personality and his gimmick away from Jimmy. So I think that kinda helped too. And then you had, obviously the match, him versus Roman Reigns, which, I still think Jay should have won. But hey, you know?
I agree with that. I'm sorry.
Yeah. So, I've warmed up to it. I still think it's kind of going a little bit too long. I think they kind of I I think one of the problems that I feel like I've seen with WWE is they don't necessarily build up the next. And I don't mean to make this reference in reference to Brock Lesnar, but they don't build up the next big thing, the next big. They kind of like, okay, John Cena's our guy. We're just gonna ride this until the wheels fall off. Okay, Roman's our guy. We're gonna ride this until the wheels fall off. Okay, what about the next guy? We'll worry about that when it comes along. Um,
Yep.
and I think you have guys who could be the next, big thing. L.A. Knight. I could easily see him being eventually being the WWE champion, Universal champion, whatever. Obviously, I would have him win like the IC title or the US title first. I wouldn't necessarily push him right to the main event, but I could definitely see him being a good, face of the company. And there's a bunch of guys that if they just built them up and kind of put a little bit more focus on them, could definitely be the next future, face of the company.
Yeah. And I think before I get on to the next question, I think that's kind of what Roman has been good at with the bloodline. Like,
Yeah.
I think he's building Solo up to be like the next big, like, star.
Yeah, yeah. I've been kind of with Solo's gimmick. I've kind of with his character. I've kind of been on the fence because he just kind of feels like just a henchman a lot of the times, and I kind of want him to kind of have that moment where he kind of branches out as a little bit more of than just like the guy who just stands there and does this the whole time. um and I've met him once at a show. I worked a show that he was on. Super nice guy. He, seems like a cool guy. I'm super happy that he has, that he's finally in WWE with his brothers. That's awesome. I just kind of I want to see a little bit more of what he can do. Let him kind of come out of his shell a little bit. Yeah.
Absolutely. So now I'm gonna do a kind of a light-hearted question.
All right.
Um, so what's your favorite snack or cookie?
Oh, my favorite snack or cookie. Um, I gotta go with the classic Oreos. You can't go wrong with a good Oreo. And they have so many different flavors and varieties that you can't go wrong.
That's a valid point. So what's your pre-match and post-match routine before you go out and manage somebody, or after you get done, as far as the post-match goes?
um, so pre-match, kind of depends on the show. Sometimes I may be recording the previous match for one of my friends on the card because sometimes they'll ask me if I can record their match for them. So sometimes I'm doing that. Um, Usually I'm going over the match one or two more times with whoever I'm managing at the time. Especially if I have a spot for the match because you know even though if I have a spot, it's usually one or two spots here and there. I don't have to remember a whole match, but I'm still like, you know, I guess I overthink the matches sometimes, and I'm like, okay, I gotta remember, this is leading up to this, and then I gotta do this, and blah 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 blah. So I'm probably usually going over the match one or two more times with the guys in the match, and then post match, go backstage, make sure everything was good. Um, you know, talk to the guys that were in the match, make sure, if there was a mess up in the match, or if it looks like somebody may have been hurt, I make sure that they're okay, and make sure everybody's good. Make sure, talk to the ref a little bit, because you always want to talk to the ref after the match. Make sure that everything looked good from their perspective, because they are, in a normal match, they're the third guy in the match. With a manager, they're, the fourth guy in the match, because you have to consider that. Um, and then I'm usually kind of, um, walking around, cooling down from the match, because I'm very active ringside. I'm always, running to one side of the ring or the other side of the ring. So I probably sweat almost as much or as much as the guys in the match. So I'm usually cooling down, maybe getting something to eat, depending on where the or the show is, and then kind of just, if I can, watching the rest of the show, because I like to watch as many of the matches on the card as I can, just to kind of see what everyone's doing. And you like to support your friends and like to watch their matches. And if I see something and I like to, hey, I saw you do this, maybe, try to do something different next time. Just kind of give a little tips and advice from things that I see. So yeah, that's pretty much my pre and post kind of match ritual. I don't really have that much of a ritual. It's just kind of do whatever, I guess.
Hey, that works.
Yeah.
Um, so for those who don't know, um, who are some of the top indie stars in Pennsylvania?
So, um, let's see. There is I gotta put my guy over, the Electric City Master of Ceremonies, Squid Sterling. He's been managing him for like 2.5, 3 years now. He's one of my best friends. Got to put him over. Um, Ricky Price, again, I mentioned him earlier. He's so talented. If he's not, picked up by, WWE, Ring of Honor, AEW, at some point, there's something wrong. There's something wrong with the business, because he is. I always joke that I hate how good he is, and he has been since I remember, and my buddy Squid and I talk about it all the time. Ricky Price's debut match was one of the best debut matches we've ever seen. If you didn't know, you would think that was, he'd been at least working for a year at that point, but he's got it. He's just got it. Let's see who else. There's a lot of really good talent out here. And I hope people kind of see. Um, Trying to think. So, Robbie Vegas is a guy that I think is really good. He regularly does extra work for WWE. So I'm hoping one day they pull the trigger and sign him, and give him that opportunity. Um, let's see, Siren Rain, again. He's another young guy. He's only been wrestling for, I think, 2 years now, but he's one of those guys, again, that he's just got it. He understands it. He gets it. He's also trained by Ring of Honor original HC Loke. If
Oh wow.
anyone, yeah, yeah, yep. So he's very good. All of HC Loke students are phenomenal wrestlers. Um, yeah, I'm trying to think of more, but there's a lot of really good talent out here. I feel honored to be able to work, up in this area. Obviously, I want to branch out. I want to, be able to work Ohio. I want to work, Jersey. I want to work, you know, the Midwest. I want to get out to, the West Coast. But, I think we got a good thing going out here. I definitely think if anyone hasn't checked out the Northeast PA wrestling scene, definitely, and even the New York wrestling scene, definitely check it out. There's a lot of good talent out here.
Very nice. And my last question for the night is where can we find you on social media? When's your next upcoming match?
So, social media. I'm on Twitter at CR _O'Malley. I don't use Twitter much. I should. And I'm terrible with social media. I need to use it a lot more. Um, but same on Instagram, CR _O'Malley. I try to post a little bit more on there. Facebook, you can just search CR O'Malley, and my page will come up. Um, all of the matches that I'm managing, I post on there. So it's probably your best bet to kind of for updated posts is going to be Facebook. The next show that I have is September 9th, uh, Pennsylvania Premier Wrestling. So that's exciting. It's one of the kind of my I would sort of consider it my home promotion at this point, because that's the one of the few regular bookings that I have. Um, and then we got a couple other things coming up. One of them I can't necessarily announce right yet because all the T's haven't been crossed and all the I's haven't been dotted yet. But hopefully we'll be posting that soon. It's going to be a show in Scranton, Pennsylvania, so that'll be good. As for any more, I'm looking for more bookings right now. It's kind of it's died down a little bit, kind of the end of summer and the build up to school coming back and everything kind of seems like it usually dies down around this time. And then we'll pick up a little bit uh, later on. But again, always trying to find bookings. Hopefully every weekend. That's my goal, is to be booked every weekend. I always say that, and it's harder than I would have thought it would be 4 years ago before I got into the business. But I'm definitely looking for any promotions that are looking for a manager. But I always post any matches that I have on my Facebook. So that's probably the best bet to keep in touch with me. So yeah.
Very nice. And I want to thank you for being on tonight. It's probably after midnight where you're at by now. Or
Just about
close.
11:57.
So we'll go ahead and let you go so we don't keep you
Thank
too
you.
long.
Thank
And
you for having me.
again, you're welcome back anytime. It's awesome to meet somebody that has some of the same ideals as I do and as
Yeah.
Inclusion Pro Wrestling does. So,
Yeah, yeah. Anytime, just let me know. I'll gladly come on again. Absolutely.
all right. And again, in the future, we will definitely have you down to Inclusion Pro Wrestling. And who knows, maybe we
Absolutely.
can make that dream of yours happen with the Handicapped Heroes. So,
I hope so. I hope so. That'd be awesome.
all right. Well, thank you very much. I
Thank
want to
you.
say thank you to our sponsors really quick before they kill me for not saying thank you to them. First of all, it's I want to say thank you from the bottom of my heart to Rain Church for becoming the new home of Inclusion Pro Wrestling, um, and helping Inclusion not only helping me but helping bring wrestling back to the Longview Kelso area. Um, Also, I'd like to thank uh, Los Jalapenos Taqueria in Longview, Washington, El Ranchero's Mexican restaurant in Longview, Washington, Precision Power Washing, and you can find the guy that is in charge of that on Facebook. Uh, American Family Insurance, and the agent there is Kevin Watson. Go to him for all your insurance needs. The CARE program, which stands for Community Action Reaching Everybody, and you can find the lady that's in charge of that on Facebook, or her name's Becky Burkhart. And Bruce Nichols Painting for all your painting, pressure washing, and lead removal needs, and you can find him on Angie's. So again, we want to thank you for coming on, and uh, best of luck in the future. I'm sure you're going to do wonderful things.
Thank you. Appreciate it.